How many know Wyclef Jean, the rapper? He was the guy at the end there. He's an American rapper, and he's kind of big. He used to be in the Fugees, if you remember the Fugees. Right? They had a couple big songs. But anyway, that's a funny story. We were in Toronto at the film festival, and he just happened to be there, just at the coffee shop with no entourage, just him. And so we kind of just started talking to him, and as a kind of behind the scenes aside, we told him about the project, about his name is Sean, doing 1 job a week, and Wyclef, he's like, come here, I'll give you some advice. And he said, you know, he kind of like lean in, all quiet, and he says, make sure you spend at least 1 week working in a high-class strip joint. We're like, what?
What is that, sorry?
It's like stripping, like women stripping. We're like, oh, that's terrible idea. Anyway, he was kind of joking, not really. And then when he was leaving, that's when we got that moment when we like, hey, can you give us some advice on camera? And then he said, don't be lazy. Anyway, of course it was one of the favorite scenes in the film. So we finished that film, we sold it to TBC, and then I was actually in yoga, lying there, and I had this idea in my head. There was a filmmaker in Canada named Velko Rupert, who had a very unique name. But he also did films that really spoke to this idea of the moment in time that we're in. He did one film where he went around to all the ground zeros of the world, like New York after 9/11, or Bhopal, India after the chemical disaster, or Palestine and places like this. And he really asked the question, is there a silver lining in the mushroom cloud of these conflicts? Like, what came from this tragedy? And he actually found some very beautiful stories of people who had come through and had created change from that place. And then he did a film called Fierce Light, which there's this concept of Gandhi spoke about, which is soul force. This idea of an activism rooted in spirituality, that they're not separate. And that film was really looking at different people who are embodying this energy, this soul force. And then he was doing a third film, which is the kind of looking to the moment, at the time, which was called Evolved Love. And it was really looking at, well, where are we going as a culture, as a species? And I joined him after he was already shooting for about a year. And in yoga, I had this thought in my head. I didn't know him, but I had this thought in my head that I should just email him and say, hey, want to help? And so I did. And it was about 6 months, actually, of me bugging him until he finally said, okay, fine, you can come on a shoot. And we actually shot at the Canadian tar sands, which you may or may not know about over here. Yeah, it's the largest industrial project on Earth. You can see them from space. That's how big the project is. And I went with him for our first shoot, and that was our first shoot, was actually shooting the Alberta tar sands. Very devastating spiritually, but also very powerful. And it became a very powerful scene in the film. And then from then, we just kept working together, and we got along quite well, that he actually involved me more in the film until I was a co-producer. And we finished the film, which it coincided actually with the Occupy movement. What happened was, Velcro says the film got occupied. And what happened was, he had a lot of interviews with spiritual people, talking about this idea of a new movement that was all connected, that didn't actually know each other existed, but we didn't have any evidence of it yet. Like, a lot of people talking about it. And then when Occupy happened, which of course those from a more international awareness know that Tunisia and Egypt and Spain and all these things were happening, and then it was Wall Street. So Wall Street was inspired by all of these other movements. And in America, they never talked about this. They just said, oh, they're a bunch of hippies with bongos, and they don't know what they want, and blah, blah, blah. And everyone else knew, though, that this was the next phase of passing the torch from these other places. And so we became the filmmakers that tried to capture that moment. And to say, like, don't forget what's happening now, because it won't last. Right? We know this, that movements take time and they go in cycles. And we really tried to capture that beautiful moment. And I'm going to play you the trailer now for Occupy Love, which is what the film became.